Greetings, comrades, and welcome to the Eastern Border. The early parts of this episode will be dubbed over because we made some horrible mistakes when exporting the video, which is why it also took so long. Now, the building that you can see here is the Russo-Baltijski Vagonny Zavod, or the Russian Baltic Carriage Factory, which was the largest auto factory in the Russian Empire. The fact that automobiles began to be produced in Riga at all is thanks to a crisis in the railway carriage construction industry and Russia's loss in the Russo-Japanese War. The crisis forced the owners of the Russian Baltic Carriage Factory in Riga, this one, to look for a new business niche, while the Russian military, having just suffered defeat in the war, was compelled to think about the army's modernization and mechanization. One of these military men was General Shidlovsky, who was also a shareholder in the carriage factory, and it was he who in 1906 came up with a proposal to produce cars and airplanes in Riga. Of course, with the idea that this technology could be used for the needs of the army. Now, the employees of the carriage factory had absolutely no experience in this field, so they had to seek outside help. The savior was a young engineer working in the Belgian auto industry, Julien Potterat, who was persuaded to come to Riga and build an automobile production facility from scratch. Now, this whole thing, although this building was built in 1913, started in 1909, when the first Russo-Balt automobile was ready. In 1912, the Russo-Balt automobile factory employed more than 300 people, and 14 autos could be assembled there simultaneously, a very respectable number for those times. Another important fact is that at the dawn of the automotive era, long-distance races from one country to another were very popular and widely covered by journalists. Therefore, in 1909, the decision was made to enter the first Russo-Balt car in the St. Petersburg-Riga-St. Petersburg Auto Rally. Competing against 22 other vehicles, the Russo-Balt, driven by Potterat, finished fourth. Not bad for the first time. In the following years, Russo-Balt turned its attention to conquering Europe. The main driver became Andrei Nagel, a well-known auto journalist in Russia at the time, who drove Russo-Balt up Mount Vesuvius. In the prestigious 1912 Monte Carlo Rally, with a car specifically built for the competition, he covered 3,257 kilometers from St. Petersburg to Monaco in 196 hours. And then we slowly have to move to the other factory right next door. Because, well, this one is not the only one going on here. This, right next to this Russo-Balt factory, is the company Klippan Saule. The company Saule itself was established in 1965 as a textile manufacturing enterprise. As the company was created with the aim of satisfying a large part of the USSR's demand for textile products, there were initially no problems with sales. The company's products were distributed in the present-day CIS countries as well as throughout the territory of the current Russian Federation. The first factory complex, as you can see here, was built in 1966 and was given the name Saule. The company existed under this name until the collapse of the Soviet Union. In the same year, this workshop began operations. The one on the left. Yeah, the blue house was where the owners lived. The company existed under the same name until the collapse of the Soviet Union. In 1970, the construction of the factory complex was fully completed. The production facilities occupied 3 hectares. Initially, the company employed 430 people. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the company lost a huge market share because under the influence of market forces, the cost and price of the manufactured products, increased, obviously. The population of the USSR could no longer afford Saule's textiles, as the new market price was significantly higher than the former state-planned price. These circumstances forced the company to seek new markets outside of the borders of the former USSR, which is why I'm mentioning this, because apparently they're pretty big in Scandinavia. See, in 1987, after the re-establishment of the Republic of Latvia, the textile company Saule was privatized and merged with the Swedish textile company Klippan. This was one of the first combined businesses here. You can see the old sign up there in the left side on the second floor. This resulted in the creation of this Klippan Saule Latvish-Swedish joint venture, the first one of its kind. This ensured a market for Saule's products in Sweden and other countries on the Scandinavian peninsula. A certain share of the Western textile market was slowly conquered. With the ascension to the European Union, the company gained a larger market share, thanks to uniform customs tariffs that balance competitive opportunities. This really helped them finding new suppliers who offered quality raw materials at much lower prices. And now we'll be moving to one of the more obscure sites in Riga, which stands mostly forgotten and can barely even be found in Google. We're going to a quite distant location in Latgales Street, 178, next to Andrejs Pumpurs 11th Elementary School, And this is a memorial plaque dedicated to all those who've sacrificed their time to save virtual worlds by the artist Riga Curiosities. The original was in bronze, but that's gone now, and I presume that the plastic one will be removed too. This plaque, well, that was made as an art project, and as you can see, this was inspired by the game Marathon, with the enemies here and everything. That's because in the early 90s, the IT guys, they were playing Doom, but everyone who worked in some publishing or anywhere else, well, these guys, they were playing and working on Macs. Therefore, as a Marathon was a strictly Mac game, well, this is why, for fun and profit, I suppose, Mr. Bikshe just planted it there. Now the school was renovated and it changed hands and everything, so this is why I wanted to film this before this too gets lost, as the current picture here, well, that's purely from plastic. Mr. Bikshe also managed to get into a bit of a trouble because, well, he was an elected MP of our parliament during the days back when the hockey championship was happening in Latvia. We were hosting it. And in response to Lukashenko threatening to shoot down a passenger airplane going from Athens to Vilnius, which he then made land in Minsk and, well, put an opposition journalist into prison, well, over there, Mr. Bikshe stated that we should just keep all of Belarusian hockey team hostages so that, we can ransom them. That ended up with a really large scandal at that point. I guess that would be much easier right now. But now, we're moving to Grīziņkalns and, well, the park of 1905. See, in the second half of the 19th century, Pērnavas Street, this whole street on which this is located, was established, and the active construction of small factories, workshops, and residential houses for factory workers began in the neighborhood. The city council became interested in Grīziņkalns, Grīziņš Hill, one of the highest sand dunes in the area, 24 meters above sea level. In 1885, the city's development plan designated this dune to be landscaped into a recreational area for residents. In 1902, Riga's garden director and landscape architect Georg Kruppholt was tasked with developing a greening project for Grīziņkalns, with a special place allocated for amusement area and restaurant. It was planned to build a final terrace at the top of the hill with a 65-foot high observation tower and artificial castle ruins, which would then house a cafe and a wine cellar. These plans were halted by the 1905 revolution. As the surrounding neighborhood was inhabited mostly by workers, Grīziņkalns Park became a sort of center for rebels and, well, revolutionaries. During the general strike area in the revolution of 1905, about which you could find actually more with the great Mike Duncan's podcast, Revolutions, really, he had great episodes there, and from that, Peter the Painter, who nearly shot, Winston Churchill came out, and also the Ed Leedskalnin, who built the Coral Castle in Florida. All these guys stem from here, which are very much underrepresented in Latvian schools. Well, more than 100,000 people gathered here, and speeches in all languages spoken in Riga were heard from 30 platforms simultaneously. In 1930, in honor of the 25th anniversary of this revolution, Grīziņkalns Park was renamed, but, well, now it's renamed back. Having suffered significant damage in the Second World War, the park was restored afterwards. In 1949, almost unbeknownst to anyone, a top-secret Soviet military object was created in this park, Grīziņkalns. The Reserve Command headquarters for the USSR's Baltic Military District were installed under the hill for use in case of a war, connected by underground passages to a nearby military unit on Sapieru, or Sapper Street. In parallel with this construction, the appearance of the hill above the bunkers was restored. Today, the Grīziņkalns data center is located here. First, the Kokvena sculpture Lutausis by sculptor Mārtiņš Šmelts was installed, and this monument was put here in 1974 to the revolutionaries of 1905. This is erected opposite of the corner of Pērnavas and Jāņa Asara streets. And this was made from the blocks of the dynamited Staboraks cliff, which we'll get to sometime in the future. This whole symmetrical figural walls are adorned with reliefs, a tribute to the muse of revolution inspiration and the worker fighters of the area. And now we'll be moving, well, quite nearby, just across the street, to Jāņa Asara Street 15, which is nearby Pērnavas, where one of the more interesting sculptures of our city is located. And so, this is Ūdenzirgs, the seahorse or the sea lion, by sculptor Rihards Maurs. See, on a plot of land belonging to the city of Riga, where allotment gardens, part of the so-called sewing colony, were located until the 1920s, a four-story apartment building designed by architect Oskars Tielmanis was constructed. And this This so-called city blockhouse was an outstanding example of the architecture of its time, not only in terms of artistic expression, but also in the layout of its apartments. A children's playground was created in the building's courtyard where this sculpture, as you can see, was placed. It was renovated in 2019 by the means of the people who live here. In the early and mid-1930s, the University of Latvia's private docent and astronomer Sergejs Slaucītājs had lived in the building. In the first half of the 1930s, a Riga consumer cooperative store operated in the house. In the block between this Asara, Pērnavas and Daglava streets, this Tīlmanis architect had designed a residential development for the entire large block, but only a small part of this was realized. The rest of the larger part of this territory is now occupied by the Daugava Stadium. Maurs, by the way, escaped the Soviet Union and migrated to live in Boston, where he died in 1966. And now we're finally getting to the part which was originally recorded. But hey, maybe you like dubbed things, so if it is so, let us know. We'll speak slower next time, though. That's important. So here I am on the corner of Flow Street and Invalid Street. Well, the Disabled Street. It's named that way because of the hospitals nearby and the recruitment center. This was where the barracks used to be. And as you can see right now, this Flow Street has been decorated with pictures of our beloved movie Flow, which I also advertised on the show, by the way. I love that one, with the Golden Globe and the Oscar that it won. Sadly, I can't film behind me because that's an interesting object that I need my journalist physical press pass to go and, orient myself around that place. But I'll do that. Just not right now, because I really don't want to be arrested while filming this. After showing you greasing counts, it seems logical to show you this building as well. This is Brasas prison. Construction in this began in 1905 after the uprising that you saw in the park there, as a place where the Tsarist government could imprison the wannabe revolutionaries. It opened in 1907. Initially only men were imprisoned here, but later women and minors were also just thrown in all the jail cells. Just in the modern era, only men served their sentences in these cells. This prison, by the way, was closed in 2019. In later years, the prison's infrastructure had become so outdated and maintenance so expensive that the prison administration decided to close the facility, which no longer met modern standards, and transferred inmates to other prisons. In addition, in Latvia, in modern day, well, we try to impose fewer prison sentences, doing more public service and the like. Since the closure of Brasa prison, the site has remained virtually untouched except for the tours available a couple of times per year. Next time when it's available, I'll definitely go in and film it for you guys. During the Soviet era, this prison was distinctly black. It was a closed prison where prisoners were held for serious and particularly serious crimes, and Bratva basically ran everything. There's an interesting inscription on the wall of one of the cells there, which was widely reported to the media upon its closure. Quote, "Crime is a normal reaction of normal people to abnormal living conditions." Kinda makes you think, doesn't it? The last incident in this prison took place just a year before it was closed. I'll quote an article from the Latvian media Apollo.lv, which is now closed as well, but they wrote about this at the time. In May 2018, the inmate was in a sewing workshop in Brasa prison, where he worked sewing pants for the National Armed Forces. Yeah, because they had a company sewing this. Convinced that no one was watching him, the prisoner took a pair of National Armed Forces trousers worth 100 euros. To avoid detection, the man put on the stolen trousers over his own. The stolen National Armed Forces uniform trousers were handed over to another inmate in cell 112 of Brasa prison, who was then later released on the same day from the detention facility and took the trousers with him, the judgment states. Apparently the poor sod got himself about 3 months extra because of this nonsense. And this, on the way home from the prison, is the park that used to be a gravesite. We used to hang out here during our teenage years, like with all the goth and metal kids. This will deserve its own episode since, well, this place is big, it was demolished during the Stalin's era, and this contains the graves of quite a lot of important people throughout all of our independence years, and then it was just bulldozed over and, turned into what it is now by the Stalin's regime. But this is going to be it for today. We're trying to improve the sound and everything. There's going to be more cities and towns coming on soon. And I hope that, we're improving. I'm not that good with these video things personally. And the biggest issue is that Rob really can't sleep as well because, he's overworked with all the editing.
But yeah, this one's gonna get its own special episode soon. Don't worry about that. But as I finish all of my podcast episodes, happiness is mandatory.